Good evening and welcome to the Icecast Live. My name is Shane Chemsey and next to me is Mr. Ollie McMonee. How you doing, Ollie?
I'm all right, Shane. How are you?
I'm fantastic, mate. And I've just realised there's a wire in the screen like hanging. So I've got my mic above me and yeah, it's not the best setup in the world. So.
Very unprofessional.
Excuse the wire. It won't go away. It keeps coming back. Well, never mind. Oh dear. So tonight we've got an interesting couple of guests, haven't we, mate?
Very good.
Yeah, Mr. Kevin Gunstone and Stefan Mikonyik. I hope I've said that right. I'm sure he'll
probably not.
Correct me if I haven't, but it looks like Mikonyik, but I could be saying it wrong. So Stefan, let me know if I'm saying it wrong. And we're going to be talking about the new graphic novel, which is called Future Primitive, which looks really, really cool. I believe you've had a little sneak peek at it, Ollie.
I have had a good sneak peek, I must admit, and it's pretty epic to say the least. But I'm sure we'll be diving into all the myth making and world building in the next hour.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to it. So, without any further ado, Sam, can you please run VT, and we'll get straight into it. Welcome back to the Icecast and welcome Kevin and Stefan. How you doing, guys?
Good. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's nice to have you. Stefan, did I get your name right? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Slavic last names end with ich, so it's Mirkonich.
Oh, Mikonyich. Like, I forget that the C is a ch.
Yeah, it's actually got a little thing.
Oh.
It's actually ch and not C.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being so forgiving of my effort. So, of course, tonight we're here, Ollie and I, and you guys, to talk about the new. Is it a graphic novel? Is that because I noticed it was advertised as a magazine?
A graphic novel.
Yeah.
No. The idea is that we split the graphic novel into 3 parts for kind of the first 3 issues. So yeah, that's how it was originally done.
Got you. So that's a bit different to how stuff usually comes out. Usually, like they're split up and then they're collected. But
yeah,
and you're doing it the other way around.
Well, we are. Well, the original book came out a few years ago, and when we got the publishing rights back to it from Marcosia, kind of like about a year or so ago, we thought that we'd like to. Obviously, we want to, continue the story, and we thought, well, it's best to have the first story kind of going in first. So we thought that, splitting up was that way. And also, I'm a big fan of kind of like 70s mags, like Heavy Metal, Savage Sword and First Kingdom and stuff like that. So we thought that, that's the kind of format that inspired us to do it in the first place. So let's do it like that.
Cool. And it's a larger format as well, isn't it? It's not like a normal format.
No. I say it's kind of A4, which again, is the kind of, obviously it makes it a bit different, but that's the kind of format that I kind of really like and I still kind of really collect. So we just thought it kind of made sense to kind of present it in that way.
And those larger pages allow the art to breathe a little bit more.
I think the art demands to be A4, having looked
at it. It does. I mean,
Absolutely.
ideally, perhaps we should do it treasury size, but I think that'd be going kind of like a bit too far.
You can recollect it again in a few years' time, Kevin, and then you can do a treasury edition.
Absolutely. We'll have to have an artist edition of it, perhaps, or something like that.
Oh, that would be great.
That would be. That would be amazing. Yeah, I mean, because kind of, Boban and Stefan's art really does use up the whole of the page. So, we want to see as much of it as possible. Absolutely.
And we've got some artwork there on the screen. That's pretty stunning stuff, actually. And you've created a new imprint, haven't you, to publish this, Kevin?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I thought that rather than call it something like Gunstonia or something like that, I kind of thought it'd be better if we had something that sounded moderately cool, or at least to me. So we sort of came up with the name kind of Studio Azoth, and Azoth, in alchemical terms, is the invisible ingredient that stimulates the imagination. So we thought that sounded, quite suitable.
I like a story behind a name.
Yeah. Well, I spent ages trying to decide what it was, talking with friends, but that's what we came up with. Yeah.
Did they shotgun Stonia down then, Kevin?
My ego isn't sufficient that I wanted to be that in the first place.
I think Gunstone Comics, that sounds quite good to me, actually.
Oh no, I think
if we ever do a Western.
Yeah, well, perhaps I'll have Gunstone as a spin-off imprint or something like that. I don't know.
So talking about concepts and ideas and stories, what was the inspiration for Future Primitive? Because as we say, it's been around a little while now.
Sure.
What made you sort of come up with this world that you've created?
Well, I kind of started writing comics again a few years ago, after having taken a 7-year break. During which time I spent all my time in nightclubs DJing house music.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
that's different.
Wow. It was. I didn't actually start mixing until I was about 38 or something like that. So
really, goodness.
I was quite late to it.
An old story in itself.
Yeah. It was 7 pretty crazy years, to be perfectly honest.
I bet.
But then, once I got into my mid-40s, I thought, well, if I keep up with this, I'll probably be dead in like a couple of years.
Dead and deaf.
Absolutely. So I thought to myself, obviously I wanted to write comics again. I started to see what would happen when I started writing again. So it was the kind of comic which I'd always wanted to do, but which I hadn't done before. Which was, kind of influenced by Kirby and my interest in, perhaps more esoteric things. And just wanted to create a big epic story. Yeah.
And it really is epic as well, because I mean, you've created this alternative world, haven't you? And I assume that it's actually set in present day, but on this world, things developed a little bit differently to our world.
No, it's Earth. It's kind of our Earth. And I've left it kind of ambiguous as to whether it's in the past or the future. Millions of years in the past, or it could be millions of years in the future. You see,
yeah. Oh, so we could be heading for a big reveal at some point then.
You never know. There's little things that are kind of like dropped in there, I guess, kind of like all the way through. But we take a lot of. Yeah, I mean, it kind of, another thing which has always interested me was kind of the people like Von Daniken and stuff like that. So, the ideas and names and kind of imagery you associate with that, I wanted to include in the story.
Ollie, do you have a question?
Well, I'm getting back. I totally understand the connection with heavy metal, with Savage Sword, Conan, like that. The first time because I always have this habit of looking through a comic before I read it, and it's something that goes back to childhood, to decide which comics to read first. And again, even looking at it as a PDF on a screen, I was blown away by the sheer epic scale. Those big double-page spreads that do feel like, those cave paintings come to life. It is very cosmic as well, isn't it? It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I've always been a fan of kind of cosmic things, be they comics or kind of like music. From kind of a really kind of like young age, I suppose. Ever since I went to see Hawkwind when I was like 13 or 14 sort of thing. I've always been kind of more into that side of things than kind of perhaps the everyday.
Yeah. Oh, we can see it now with this image. These images. Yeah.
I mean, where do you? I mean, obviously, it's a huge universe that you're building, and it's a huge myth that you're creating. Where does one start? I mean, I've been to a number of panels where some writers say they start with the characters, Other writers say they start with the world and then the characters develop themselves. Where did you start, Kevin?
Well, I was kind of I've got an absolute ton of those kind of ancient national books that came out kind of like in the 70s. And, you know, most of them, you know, obviously they're, you know, complete bobbins, but that doesn't bother me because they've got lots of really interesting ideas in and lots of kind of what if like ideas. And I happened to kind of read something and it was talking about this supernova explosion from about 300,000 years ago or whatever, and how it could have affected life on Earth. And it was kind of around about the time of the Neanderthals. And I just had this kind of idea or this kind of vision of this kind of vast kind of like Neanderthal kind of empire. And I just started building it from there, you know, thinking what would their religion be, which would be kind of based around this kind of like supernova and this kind of prophecy that kind of like the supernova would also kind of result in their destruction. And that was kind of how I kind of got into the idea in the first place. Then I just started kind of coming up with, you know, some of the characters, like the central one, Culkin. And just started building it from there, really, because we got a big influence of kind of like Mayan and kind of Aztec myth by way of names and obviously, you know, the design and things like that. So I just kind of used that as kind of the basis and just kind of changed things and just I suppose, for want of a better word, reimagined it.
Yeah. And certainly the original, I mean, I know we're talking to Stefan here. I certainly know the artwork by Slobodan. It reminds me of Paul Gallucci, another sort of callback to the classic 1970s artists of Marvel and so forth. How did Stefan get involved then in this new run?
Well, Stefan was actually the colorist on the original run as well.
Right.
I kind of came up with the idea, just like the outline, you know, in quite a few pages of it. And then I found Boban on DeviantArt because, as I say, I've been creating out comics for a while, so it really was like starting again from scratch. And I just kind of got an account on DeviantArt, just started looking through it, saw Boban, I thought, yeah, his style would really suit this. And then wrote to him and said, you know, introduced myself and said, you know, I've got this idea. I think, you know, you'd be really good for it. So I sent it along to him, and he actually already started on the character sketches before he even wrote back to say that he was interested. So,
wow.
You know, that's a fantastic sign of kind of how much he was into it. So, yeah, and we just kind of took it from there. We had a different colorist originally who did the kind of first part of the story, but he kind of dropped out for kind of various reasons. And that was when Boban recommended that kind of Stefan kind of came and joined us, which was, you know, fantastic.
And what was it like, Stefan, having to sort of take over from another colorist? Did you feel that you had to sort of go with that sort of palette, or were you able to develop your own palette as things went along?
Yeah, it took me a bit of time to develop my approach. Maybe issue 2, issue 3, maybe. But I think I really found the look for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's some lovely pages there that Sam was showing us earlier. Sam, keep showing the artwork because it's gorgeous.
It is. It's a great colour palette, isn't it? Like, I love the earthy browns as well to sort of set up the world. But then, of course, the colour palettes change depending on the drama that's unfolding, and also the different sort of various geographical places we end up in.
And it has a sense of old Earth, you know.
Those deep browns, you know.
Especially something like that that's like, you know, got that deep sort of yellow light. I mean, is that an sort of underground environment there, or is it just a? I'm trying to work out.
That's the kind of pyramid of kind of like Zakor, because what I do is, so we only see these characters kind of briefly in the first story, but there's this kind of Egyptian kind of like race, and we kind of have this kind of character called Zakor in it, who you saw his kind of barge kind of like a few minutes ago. And he's kind of like my version of Horus. So yeah, they're kind of Egyptian kind of like deities who kind of pop up in the story. Yeah.
And I'm really interested. Sorry, go on.
No, that's cool.
I'm really interested in how the technology works in this world, because you can see that it's not, that it's not Stone Age, is it? There's some sort of technology. What is it? I mean, can you tell us, or is that spoiling it? What powers all this stuff?
No. Well, I mean, in the case of the kind of main kind of characters, kind of the Neanderthals, their whole world is kind of based around this kind of energy source called the atom, which is kind of this which is they use as God, and it kind of resonates this kind of field that kind of powers all their technology. So that's it and the whole point of kind of the first story is their defense of the atom from these kind of like invading kind of like Australopiths who are pledged to their kind of destruction, because without their power this kind of race are nothing. But as I say, that the field only extends kind of like a certain kind of like way, so kind of beyond that they're kind of completely powerless. But it powers everything, like their sky sleds and the transport, all that kind of thing, and kind of the weaponry as well.
Fascinating. It's I love this sort of world building. I really do, because you have to start from scratch, don't you? Because you can't you can't really reference a lot of contemporary, no contemporary stuff, or even historical or prehistory, because it's different. It's a different origin.
No, and I think that's one of the things that I was kind of that I kind of tried to kind of make a point of when I was actually kind of like scripting it. And that was the fact that I didn't want any kind of modern day kind of idioms in it, or or sayings or anything like that, because whenever I read that in a comic or kind of like a story, I always find it kind of winds me up slightly. So I was trying to think of different ways to phrase things. So we could give something like the sun a different name. Actually, that picture there, that is actually their kind of power source, because it's built into this kind of massive, great big kind of mountain, which is kind of like their home.
Right.
And say that's the atom. It's a thing that was created, hundreds of thousands of years before, which they kind of worship as a god.
Right. And is it quite a violent culture? Do they have sacrifices and stuff like that?
They don't have sacrifices, but the Australopith Moon clan, they love their sacrifice.
Oh, right.
This race are actually quite spiritual in kind of a lot of ways.
Yeah.
With kind of cosmic religion. So they're moderately kind of peaceful, but obviously when they're kind of defending kind of their kind of territory, then obviously they're as violent as they need to be. Completely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm loving this color work here. It's like a totally different approach. Like you have a page like this, which is almost like traditional coloring, and then those other more sort of textural pages. What's the story there, Stefan? What was your decision making process for those pages?
Well, so some of it was set by the original colorist, but that's the idea of like psychedelic cave paintings, if something like that ever existed.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed like that.
Because what we do is that obviously we've got kind of the normal comic pages, and then every so often we have these kind of cave art pages, and the idea of that is that we've got this kind of like dual kind of like narrative, whereby we use the cave paintings to actually relate the history of their race and the origins of kind of their world. So by the time we get to kind of the end of kind of the first story, it's taken us from kind of their creation, or kind of the creation of this kind of particular version of Earth, right up until kind of the present day. But we do it instead of just in normal panels, like in a more representative way, like cave art.
I love those muted blues on those costumes, and really nice. It's this coloring is so subtle. It's really great, and there's not too much molding. It's just enough to give it dimension. It's great. I'm talking about the coloring. I'm talking about the coloring because Stefan's here, and I feel like we should talk about the coloring. But
colorists don't get enough.
No, they don't.
Do they a lot of the time?
They don't. They really don't.
I'm guilty of that myself when I'm
It's
reviewing.
such an important part, isn't it, of the storytelling, the colouring, and having this, and it's so consistent, and it gives you a sense of who these characters are and what the world is like. It's a massive contribution. Yeah, I love that stuff. And when you created this, was this before or after your other book, Kevin? Because you did a book called Planet of Demons, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I did Planet of Demons. I started Planet of Demons not long actually after Future Primitive.
Right.
It came out a year or so kind of afterwards. Stefan was the colorist on that as well, on Planet, because I really like the work he did on kind of Future Primitive. So when I was doing Planet with kind of Paul Moore, you know, it was like, you know, I really like the atmosphere that kind of Stefan created, and I thought that's the kind of atmosphere that I wanted to get with Planet of Demons, because we had bits on that set in Salem, but also in these in the kind of occult realms of the Clipoth. And you know, Stefan did kind of a really great atmosphere.
Yeah, I love this page here.
Oh, that's actually one of the awards. That's actually not in the comic. It's an original watercolor painting by Boban. Yeah, no, so it's a kind of one-off original kind of watercolor, which is one of the awards, which is still available. So yeah,
I mean, that's something we want to talk about. Sam, are you able to bring up the Kickstarter so that we can have a look at it on the screen? And this is one of the rewards for the Kickstarter, then, Kevin. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an original kind of watercolor. Yeah,
fantastic. Because I was having a look at the campaign and I noticed there's some really cool rewards.
Well, I'm impressed that you can get a 56-page A4 comic for £6 in print.
Absolutely,
that's amazing.
How does that happen?
I know, that's really good. That is.
Well, the price of printing's come down so much these days, hasn't it? You get it done somewhere like Mixon's. If you get enough of them done, it works out incredibly well.
Is the plan to overprint so that, cross fingers, should we get back to a certain sense of normality, you can hit the convention circuit?
Absolutely, that was always the plan, that we'd kind of overprint so we could then, afterwards, sell them kind of mail order, sell them at conventions, perhaps try to get some in the shops. And also, for when we do kind of the second issue, we could then kind of use those, as kind of rewards too, for catch-up packs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How dense is your script? Because when I look at that, and you effectively created a world out of nothing, but it still seems to be, even with all the artists involved with character designing, it seems to me that it probably lends itself more to Alan Moore than Stan Lee in terms of scripting, does it, Kev?
Yeah, I'm quite precise, to say the least.
I thought so. I think it shows. I think it shows in every single.
I'm not necessarily dictorial.
No,
is that right, Stefan? Is that right? Is he being honest?
I always have a good idea. Well, I studied art for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I've got a fairly kind of visual kind of imagination, I hope. So yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of like a 23-page script normally runs to about 10,000 words.
Wow.
Or something like that.
There's a lot of information in there.
Yeah, there is.
That's two faces.
I give a lot of detail per panel, and I have a strong suggestion as to how I want to see them arranged as well.
Well, I think that's fair enough. If you're sort of an artist as well as a writer, you have an idea of how you want the storytelling to happen. I don't think there's any problem with that. If if you're working in that way, I think a lot of artists respond well to that. I think
it's a personal thing. It's like when I was working with Paul on Planet of Demons, he did say at a fairly early kind of like point that he prefers not to have so much direction for things like the panel arrangement. So I thought fine, so I didn't do that unless I had a really strong idea for how I wanted something to work, or I wanted it to work in a particular way. But yeah, with kind of Future Primitive, I was kind of pretty precise, to be fair. But I spend a lot of time kind of collecting kind of comic pages for things which I think work well and for kind of layouts. So I've always got like ideas for it.
And were you able to send those kind of comic pages out as references to help the artist visualize it even more?
No, not really. What I do is I always write kind of like underneath each kind of page number, I always write kind of like a few sentences, paragraphs saying about how I think they should kind of be arranged on the page. Yeah. So yeah.
So there's no pages of script that just say Sky Bearers versus Moon Clan fight for 4 pages. Go for it.
No, I sometimes wish I could, but no, I feel as though I'm cheating and I'm not doing my job properly if I do that.
It all depends on the artist as well, isn't it? I mean, some artists, you could do that. You could just say, yeah, these guys fight for 4 pages and the artist will deliver, 4 pages of amazing storytelling. But some artists need a little bit more direction. And I think knowing your artist and what they can do and what they want to do is a big, important part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, so, I guess I'm just a control freak.
So, Sam, can you scroll down a bit on the Kickstarter and we'll have a look at some of the rewards?
There's a lot on there. There's a lot on there.
Yeah, and we have to say, come on, guys, there's a long way to go yet. We've got
a long way to go.
Yeah, come on, get out there, start pledging on this book. It seriously needs to happen. So we've got some cover art there. There's a little bit about the story. I think we can have a look at Sam, if you can go to the offers, what's on offer. Because I've seen a few things. I mean, if it's a bit slow on the computer, I'll talk through them because I've got it on my screen here.
Yeah.
Because there's original artwork. I mean, wow. I mean, it's cheap. I mean, that watercolor, the pledge is only £100. I mean, that's just incredible.
I think it's a good deal. And we got about 10, say, black and white pages as well. And Boban, very generously kind of donated those to kind of the project rather than kind of taking the money for himself.
So really?
It kind of goes kind of like into the pot, which is, fantastic. And also the other cover, the variant was drawn and coloured actually by Prentice Rollins.
Right.
Who you may or may not know used to be an artist for DC Milestone.
A while ago, isn't it?
Yeah, quite a few other things. Yeah. But Prentice actually bought a copy of the book when it first came out at the London Super Comic Con, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I kind of stayed in touch with him. And he's really kind of into it. He's also quite into Planet of Demons because he wrote the introduction for it.
Cool.
But I met up with him once in London, and he sort of said that he spent ages working out how he had drawn Future Primitive. So when we decided to kind of relaunch it as a magazine, I thought, well, yeah, let's do a variant. So I asked him if he'd be interested, and he was only too happy to, which was kind of fantastic. Yeah,
that's lovely, isn't it? That's really nice. I mean, another pledge I've seen here: original art double page for £175. I mean, that's did you have some fun colouring that one, Stefan? Because it looks like you did.
A lot of work into those.
I mean,
I like the T-shirt. I like the T-shirt with the front cover. That's a very good T-shirt, isn't it?
It is.
Again, for £25.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bargain.
It really is. I mean, you're giving this stuff away practically.
Yeah. Well,
it sounds like we're doing a hard sell, but I think me and Shane are just blown away by not only the generosity of the pledges, but as I said at the top end of the programme, just the sheer professional sheen to it all, from colouring work to artwork. Everything just holds up. And I think it does hold up to anything that came out of like heavy metal and the resurgence of this kind of Band-Aid Desiné again that we're seeing. So I think it's come out at the right time.
Yeah, well, I think that whatever it is we do, it's always kind of a reflection on, what you're capable of, isn't it? So I think it's, important for it to look as kind of good and as professional as possible.
Definitely. And the standard of the artwork and the whole thing, and also even, little details like the standard of the lettering. I mean, I go on and on, like bang on about this.
It's very good.
Bad lettering can kill a comic stone dead, no matter kind of what the rest of it's like, can't it?
Definitely.
So, I was lucky that was done by a friend of mine, Patrick Foster, who is actually a professor of design in Toronto.
Wow.
I've known Patrick for absolutely donkey's years, and he always does kind of logos for me, and he's a good letterer as well. So he helps put everything together to make it look as cool as possible.
And did he design the Future Primitive logo? The title?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
And the Azoth comic, because that's a nice.
Yeah,
logo
he did.
well.
That's pretty much all his kind of work. It would almost feel wrong working with any other designer other than Patrick, but he's incredibly busy at the moment. So so he's been giving me a crash course in putting together ads and kind of stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
nice. And not to do the colorist a disservice here, Stefan, but I have to say those black and white pages are gorgeous.
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, I'm so tempted actually by because there's a pledge, isn't there, for a black and white version? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that is really kind of like inspired by our love of things like Warren magazines and kind of like Savage Sword and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's really, really good. And the inker, I assume, is the same. Is it Slobodan Jovanovic?
He did both. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's kind of like pencil and inker. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
But that one that we've got there on kind of the screen on the kind of left with kind of the ship kind of like at the top, that's kind of one of my favourite pieces of art from kind of the whole thing, to be perfectly honest with you. I did when Boban actually kind of offered it up as a reward. If I had the money, I'd have quite happily bought it for myself, to be perfectly honest. It's one of my favourite things ever.
It's lovely.
So if somebody wants to buy for me as a birthday Christmas present, that'd be fantastic.
So they could pledge, get it, and then send it back to you.
Yeah,
say
absolutely.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect present.
So, what are your aims with this magazine? I'll call it a magazine because that's what you've advertised it as. Is this going to be an ongoing universe that you're going to build over time, or has it got a definite sort of beginning, middle, and end already?
Well, the ending is kind of pretty much open. As I say, the first story fits into the first kind of 3 parts. And the idea was that we kind of like make enough money. Because to be perfectly honest with you, we didn't make a fantastic amount of money from the original book. No. So the idea was to, make some money as we kind of reprinted that, which would then allow us to kind of get on and produce kind of the second story, which would then be serialized. Then obviously we do the collection and just kind of continue from there, because there's a whole once kind of the first story kind of like ends. There's a whole new kind of status quo, for kind of want of a better word, and then it's a case of some of these central characters go out and explore kind of like the wider world around them, which gives us kind of plenty of options. So it's kind of open-ended, but at the same time there would be kind of a finite ending to it. So yeah.
Cool. I do have one question from the writing point of view, actually. When you create a universe like this and characters from, a world that we've never seen, we've never lived in, how do you make those characters sort of relatable in the story? Because it's very easy, isn't it, to relate to characters that live in our world or in a world that's like our world, and we can say, "Oh, I can get behind that," because it's obviously it's maybe easier to sort of think about the world building and the plot and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
How do you keep it compelling? That must be quite a challenge at times.
Well, I suppose that's to do with kind of the drama of the situation. I mean, obviously we're dealing kind of with Neanderthals here, so you think to yourself, how relatable are they? But at the same time, they've still got their same kind of wants and needs, which, in the case of the central character Culkin, is kind of defending his kind of like civilization, and kind of protecting it, and battling for what they believe in, and to kind of preserve, their kind of like culture. So I think it kind of like comes from there, and as you'll see at the end of kind of like the first kind of like story, there's kind of like a fair amount of kind of tragedy involved in it as well, which I've always been quite a big fan of.
Well, there's nothing like a good tragedy, is there, to get people going?
Absolutely. I really like good tragedy. I spend a lot of time reading it, so I like to include those kind of elements into kind of what I do.
Cool. Yeah. Because it is hard, I find. I mean, because I'm having a go at writing myself. I'm not a writer, but I'm trying to learn. And when you're in this sort of sci-fi world, it's easy, isn't it, or a fantasy world? It's very easy to get caught up in all those trappings and in the and all these. You have all these ideas for all these worlds and all these characters, and it's like, well, I've got to remember to keep it, to keep the characters real. There's got to be something. There's got to be something about them that people can relate to. And I guess those classic stories, those forms of story, the tragedy is one of the greatest, isn't it? Or the Revenger. They speak to people. It doesn't matter what world you're in. They can still resonate.
Right. No, well, I mean, I think that kind of for me, when I was kind of doing it, it was a case of I didn't want to do so. I didn't want to any kind of scenes where I didn't really want to write anything which I'd kind of already kind of seen before, or which would be. I wanted it all to be kind of like different. And to be honest with you, when I was kind of writing it, because I didn't want to do something that would kind of just happen, kind of like in our world, you've got to think, okay, I want to do something I haven't kind of seen before, and that kind of did make it kind of quite difficult. Because I didn't want it just to seem like it was like our world transformed into something else or something. So that was kind of definitely kind of one of the challenges of kind of writing about it. Just even the way in which they phrase things and kind of things like that, just to set it apart. Yeah.
But I also think what also makes it relatable. I mean, you mentioned the references to Aztec mythology, and certainly there seems to be a lot of some references to other ancient civilizations. So I think any person, whether a schoolgirl or boy or as old as me and Shane, we can relate to it. It's a world that, whilst is very original, is also dripping with familiarity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was, instead of having kind of names that kind of didn't mean anything, I like the idea of taking names from like Aztec myth and all the rest of it, looking at their meanings and just kind of repositioning them or kind of repurposing them, because you get so many names that kind of repeat through time. And I think it was very much a case of kind of taking that kind of approach to it, because I'm a big fan of, outside of comics, I'm a big fan of kind of William Blake and his kind of history, kind of like poetry. So I studied him at university, and I really like the way he just took like ideas, characters, just like that, and kind of created his own kind of world with them to kind of reflect his own kind of worldview, I guess you could say. So that kind of process was kind of very much kind of in my mind when I was doing it. There's things which kind of feel familiar, but which you hope are presented in kind of like a new way.
Yeah, and looking at it from that point of view, going on to you, Stefan, what sort of research did you do to decide your color palettes? Did you look at certain points in prehistory and say, "Oh, I'm going to take that from that," or were there any sort of historical influences that you looked at?
Yeah, well, bunch of movies, Apocalypto, for example. I was just looking at a bunch of Aztec pyramids, those historical artifacts, just to get some idea of the palettes they use, or of general materials.
Because, of course, they were quite limited in the colours they could use, weren't they, back then? Because they used sort of natural pigments and
a lot of gold
like
before
that.
the Spanish arrived.
Sure.
Before half it was destroyed.
Because I'm always interested in old art, like prehistoric and very, very, very sort of anything going back around 1,000 years or anything like that, because it's so limited in the colors but they were so ingenious sometimes how they did create color. Without what pigments they used and things like that, but it was limiting, and it's interesting to see how that's sort of been worked into this, because it really does work.
Really try to respect that and not to go overboard with the colors,
because I think it would be glaring, wouldn't it, if you suddenly came out with a really modern color, there's no way they could produce that, so congratulations on that. We've had a comment from Barry. Gents, the artwork looks lovely. if your inspirations are heavy metal, Savage, sort of Conan, Warren's 1984, Epic Illustrated, etc., you can't go wrong. Just pledged. So there you go, guys.
That's great to hear.
So if anyone else is out there watching and you haven't pledged yet, get pledging on this. But
I'll tell you what else impressed me. We spoke about this to Ram V and Mike Perkins a few weeks ago about how a lot of time there's this sort of unwritten rule in comics. You can only put so many words on a page. Being quite frugal, I like a lot of bang for me buck. And I found myself, again, drawn in with the narrative and the amount of narrative you were able to balance on the page, what with it being oversized as well. I think that helps establish the world, establish the story, establish the characters very quickly. But it's also a good, solid read. It's something I'll find myself picking up every now and again just to remind myself, like I do with classic films. Was that something you were aiming for, Kevin, or is that your natural writing style?
I think it's kind of my natural writing style. I suppose I like things to be kind of dense, but at the same time, I'm aware that I don't want to just kind of ramble on indefinitely. So, it's a case of kind of finding out what it is I kind of want to say and condensing that as much as kind of like possible, to be perfectly honest with you. But at the same time, I find it very difficult just to kind of like just write kind of throwaway lines or things that kind of like don't mean anything. And that's certainly applied in kind of like Planet of Demons as well, because there was kind of a lot of detail in that. But yeah, with kind of Future Primitive, it was a case of, okay, I want to explain these kind of moderately kind of complex ideas, but I need to try and do it in the simplest way as possible and without kind of boring kind of the reader too much and just having them kind of confronted with kind of page after page after text. Because I know that when I read comics, that's something that always kind of puts me off slightly. So yeah, it's absolutely about kind of balancing it out.
Yeah, and it keeps it moving, doesn't it? If you haven't, I mean, on the pages, some of the pages that I've seen, it's very, very art driven. The storytelling. Some of it is just a few little captions, a few little speech bubbles, and it just keeps. But you're also then allowed to sort of appreciate the artwork, while you're reading it.
Certainly, there are times when I know when to shut up and just let the artist kind of like get on with it without kind of budging in too much. But yeah, I'll put the detail in there kind of when it needs to be, and and try and disguise things as kind of best I can, I suppose, kind of for want of a better word. So yeah.
So we've already talked about your influences, Kevin, and the books and the comics that you enjoyed.
Sure.
Stefan, what comics do you read? What comics have you enjoyed?
X-Men.
X-Men, obviously. There's definitely some X-Men, without a doubt. I was admiring the T-shirt. But other than X-Men, what else do you read, and who are your influences?
Oh man, just too much. But I don't know. Always a big Frank Miller fan, for example. I like lots of, as far as writers are concerned, lots of Grant Morrison stuff. So lots of different stuff. I think both Kevin and I share some love for those old school magazine format stuff. I know when we started talking about this one, I brought up the old Shang-Chi, the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu.
Yeah.
We even had some reprints of that here in Serbia. So I really love stuff like that. So I'm actually glad that we have black and white options, like a throwback to those.
I was going to say I'm also a big fan of the First Kingdom as well. I don't know if you've kind of seen that, heard of it.
Yes, I saw one episode when I was a bit drunk and I completely forgot about it. So it's something I want to go back at it because it is, again, it's a very different take on a well-trodden genre.
Yeah, the First Kingdom was reprinted by Titan a few years back, like 6 volumes of it. And it was just this sprawling kind of like epic, which, at times was a bit mental. But yeah, that was another one of the early inspirations for it too.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, cats.
I mean, like Titan are quite great actually at publishing stuff that would otherwise be forgotten. I must say, I've bought a lot of stuff. Yeah, I've bought a lot of old stuff from Titan that Titan have put out. A lot of newspaper strip collections that they've done, and like the Modesty Blaze collections. I mean, I just love all that stuff.
And also more recently, the Drew Lake collections as well.
No, I've yet to purchase.
I definitely plan on getting some of those.
And they're good value, you know.
Fantastic value.
Yeah. Although not as good value as this Kickstarter.
No,
No way.
That's stunning value.
You're a good salesman.
I mean, being a publisher myself, you know, on and off, I am sort of flabbergasted how you've managed to do it for that money, to be honest.
Sure.
But you know, more power to you. You know, hopefully it'll mean that more people can take a stab and you know, take a punt on it and check it out, and you know, and start to get into this world that you've created.
It's a sort of comic I would recommend to a friend who isn't into comics, and I think that's the beauty about the world we live in now, with this explosion in so many different genres. I think we do live in a new, not golden age necessarily, but a new age where there is a comic for everyone. It's just a question of finding it out. And certainly there are so many of my friends in the graffiti world who want to get back into comics, but they're not into superheroes. But this kind of thing would really appeal to them. Absolutely. Yeah. So I can see this being a lot.
It's certainly not mainstream. I don't know if niche is the right word, but you know, but it's got some kind of like style, and kind of that's how we like it.
I think that going on to what you were saying, Ollie, I think that there is this sort of opportunity now for comics to sort of go into other genres, and I think we've talked about it before, haven't we? How, you know, not limiting ourselves as an industry to just one or two genres really opens things up. You know, they go on and on about how different ways that we can save comics, and one of them is to expand the types of stories that we tell, and not just always have to be in the same format and things like that. I mean, I love the fact that this is in a larger format, because it's just you know, for UK fans especially, you know, I think a lot of us, our introduction to comics was always in that format, and over in Europe as well. It's only really America that had the smaller sort of the traditional comic book format, and it really does allow you to, you know, to take, what's the word I'm looking for?
It almost seems more grown up, I suppose you could say. I don't know whether that's really quite the right word, but you know, obviously you've got heavy metal, and also, you know, got some old kind of French mags like Metal Hurlon, obviously.
That's another one.
And I've always kind of I just kind of always loved that kind of thing. And I'm quite lucky, and I still find quite a lot of copies of things like that at the local kind of boot sales, so which is great.
Yeah, and that's the great stuff. That's the great thing, isn't it? That stuff, a lot of it is really cheap to buy even now.
Yeah, definitely. You know?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know why.
Stefan, when I was going backwards and forwards to Germany when I was younger, what I found is a lot of the American comics, talking about size, they tend to be expanded and translated, so you could see more of the art. Was that your experience of comics in Serbia as well, larger and translated, or were you able to get American comics quite easily?
Usually they were larger formats. So this is all usual thing for me.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? I think
it is. It really helps you appreciate the art.
Definitely.
I actually saw a lot of those when you're talking about those German editions. My father works for our handball team, so he went all over. I have lots of from Italy, from Germany.
Die Spinner in Germany for Spider-Man.
It's really interesting. I'm actually rebuying a bunch of those in English.
Wow.
Finally, I grew up not being able to read, just looking at the pictures. And I'm like,
whereas I've got the German
50
stuff.
years later, I'm rebuying all the stuff
nice
online from UK and stuff.
You know that a comic is great when you want to buy it and enjoy it, even though you can't read the text.
Yeah.
You know? I remember buying loads of Japanese stuff and also a lot of Hong Kong stuff. I had a friend who used to go. Yeah, he used to go to Hong Kong sort of every 6 months, and he'd bring me back comics from Hong Kong, and you know, in that, and oh my god, it opened up a whole new world to me of comics, and I didn't understand any of them, and also they read backwards to us.
Yeah.
You know,
how long did it take you to work that one out, Shane?
it did, not too long. I was only 12, so bear with me, you know. But that you know, they were that good. The action was that fast paced, and the artwork was that dynamic that I didn't need to know what they were saying. You could just work out what was going on just from the art, you know. And for me, that's great comics. You know, where you can just go through the comic and just enjoy it, even without any, you know, lettering at all.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and those comics from Hong Kong.
This one works like
amazing.
that as well, though. As I was saying early on, Kevin, because I'm a lifelong fan of doing the same thing quite methodically. Look at the artwork first. It tells a story in its own right, which I think again is a big plus when we're looking at the art pages, for example. But certainly it does lend itself well. I mean, I know we're talking about what it harkens back to, but I think for any new readers out there, you know, you have got this huge expansion in fantasy. You know, things like Seven to Eternity that are coming to an end at Image Comics. Things like Asola, which is a really great fantasy world created from scratch. So I think you're in the right place with this whole new world. I think people are craving new examples of escapism that aren't just Batman and Superman any longer.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I say, you know, as I've said before, you know, I always like things or culture which takes me out of the present day and kind of takes me to kind of like somewhere else where, you know, I haven't kind of been before, and you know, that's very much kind of what the idea was with this one. And in fact, it's kind of pretty much what it is for most of the things I like to try and write, to be honest with you. You know, I find I very rarely write stories set in the present day. I don't know why. Perhaps I find it a bit mundane. I don't know. I just like creating kind of like imaginary worlds, or, you know, attempting to at any rate. Yeah.
And what was it like, Kevin, getting back into writing after 7 years? Was it like getting on a bike again, or did you have to put a few stabilizers on for the first round or two?
It was kind of like a challenge, but you know, after a while, I kind of like soon got back into it. Yeah, and I enjoy it. You know, it's you know, it's a very different experience. There's a lot of similarity between playing a DJ set and kind of writing a story. You know, you start off with nothing. You know, you've got to build it up. You've got to have a lot of twists and turns in it, and then, you know, you're always kind of building to some kind of like conclusion. You know, some kind of plateau, and then it kind of falls away. So
you've got to keep your audience involved as well.
Absolutely, got to kind of keep them interested. Got to kind of drop the big scenes or the big tunes that kind of so there's kind of like a lot of parallels. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, I think kind of writing a comic, you know, is, you know, or, you know, especially when it's collected, is a lot more satisfying. You know, because you can look back on it, it's a real kind of body of work. Whereas kind of when you're kind of playing a set in a club or something, it's, you know, different in as much as it's just an absolute massive kind of adrenaline rush, which kind of isn't really kind of quite the same as kind of writing comics. You know, writing comics is, you know, you're on your own in a room, and that's that really. Instead of being in front of goodness knows how many hundred kind of people who are absolutely off their tits, so it's completely different.
Who's to say people reading your comic aren't off their tits?
Well, and I think, you know, it might enhance the experience.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I think
especially some of those cosmic pages.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
You know, being off your face while you're reading it, I don't think that's going to do any harm at all, to be honest.
I mean, I was looking at one from I'm going to be really nerdy now and say page 89, which again is a beautiful cosmic scene, very little writing, the world of illusion, and it goes into these beautiful blues and sort of purples, and I'm not going to use it just. Yeah, I can see it working on many different levels, Kev.
I can see.
I think that's good. I once read an old Fantastic Four annual, which was when the Fantastic Four went into the negative zone. First time they faced Standing Islanders.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I read that once when I had a few disco biscuits, and absolutely blew my mind. It was absolutely stunning. I got into it so much more. It was great.
That was trippy stuff. That was.
Of course, I don't know what you're talking about. Of course.
Oh, and Stefan's thinking, oh yeah, that's before
No,
my
he's young and
time.
innocent, Stefan.
No, I know about old school stuff. Don't worry about me.
But I could see Sam actually in the studio there. I think he was trying to find that artwork to show us when we were talking about it, but we
Right.
just moved on too quickly. But Sam, continue just towards the end now, because we are getting towards the end. Just keep shoving that artwork on the screen so people can look at it. We want people to see it so that they're persuaded to buy this book.
I'm just going to get the piece of artwork up myself, if that's okay, because I've got share
go
screen
for it.
option.
Go for it. Yeah,
Let's see if it'll come up.
Hey.
That's the one there, but I don't know if Sam has to allow it through or not.
I think you can share it. I think.
Well, it says,
yeah, I can put it on. Hold on.
can you?
There
we go. That's the scene I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And the following page, it's just magnificent.
That is awesome.
Look at that. And obviously it's a double, it's one of those fantastic double page spreads where, like you say before, you know when to not overcrowd a scene with narrative.
Yeah. No, you've got to kind of have that kind of balance in it. There'd have been a crime, to be perfectly honest with you, to have kind of completely put too many kind of words on that. You just want to just give the hints, set it up, and let it go. Yeah.
I'm assuming, Stefan, are those one of your pages, page 89, colours?
Yes, but Boban actually worked on some of those colors too. We kind of tag teamed on it.
Yeah. How does that work then? Does one of you do the flat colours and the other one do everything else, or do you just say I'm going to do the purples and you can do the blues?
I did practice. I did all of the more realistic stuff, and he did some of the more psychedelic stuff. I think Boban did straight, without thinking, he did straight pencils to color.
Wow.
And I cleaned it up and added some details too.
Look at those colours there. They're really so vibrant.
It's a shame it's not come up as the double page, but 89 to 90. But look at that page following it.
Yeah.
No, that's a fantastic one. Yeah.
Great contrast between the blue, the cold blues, and the hot reds.
Yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah. Although it's always nice to include a vision quest in there.
That's magnificent. That is.
It really is.
That's certainly Disco Biscuit. Example, isn't it?
The thing is, how do you top it now?
Well, the fourth issue.
That's not part of the challenge. If it was easy, I don't like things. If things are too easy, I think, what's the point? So I like it to be kind of like a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So what's the hopeful schedule for each of the first 3 issues that make up the original graphic novel?
Probably put them out every 3 or 4 months.
Right.
So that gives us kind of plenty of time, because when we get on to kind of the new material, we'll probably, in the first issue, we've got about 44 pages of kind of story in that. And I think that kind of once we get around to kind of doing kind of the new stuff, then we'll probably have about 32 pages of kind of story in it, and perhaps some kind of backup stories. I kind of like the idea of kind of getting some kind of guest artists in to kind of do the backup and kind of doing them, doing them in a way which is kind of similar to the old Tales of Asgard.
Right.
Like in Thor, where we kind of look at kind of different parts of time, or perhaps go more into their myths or kind of their early history, just in short 6 or 8 page stories.
That's a cool idea, because then you can, because obviously you've got this whole history to tell stories in, haven't you? It doesn't have to be just this point in time. You can go forwards, you can go backwards, you can start to build it up.
Absolutely, we can just fill in. One of the things I like to do when I'm writing is kind of just dropping in hints about the past, or making reference to kind of past events or things like that. So that'd be a chance there to expand on those ideas.
I really like
original start page that we're getting rid of. Or
I think
the
our
one-
technical expert Sam wants to talk about resize European comics, Shane.
I think he does.
Should we let him speak?
Come on then, Sam. Come on. If you want to talk about something, we don't
Sam,
usually
you've got
let
30 seconds.
we don't usually let him out. But
Just special occasions.
here he is.
Oh,
Oh, lovely artwork, by the way. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's really good. No, I was just, you were talking ages ago about the resized European
That's right, yeah.
editions. I've got one here. This is a French Batman: The Dark Knight Returns.
Nice.
You can see, I mean, this is a CG copy, but so it's massive compared to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. And
That's lovely.
the artwork in it, because it's double size,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
We're spoilt in Europe in many ways, aren't we?
Well, and you've got stuff like this, like proper the original
Ah,
blueprint, the original French. I
Yeah.
can't stand a word of it, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what you want.
I love those.
Yeah, I picked these up in Lyon this summer when I went to France.
Nice.
And they're just great. Just feel that. Look, that's a proper book. That is.
Yeah.
It's worth learning French.
French, no how to make a comic book.
I mean, the French industry is just like amazing, isn't it? I mean, you've got so much choice.
Oh, their
Yeah.
comic shops are amazing. They're like just stuffed full. And the French guy I spoke to, I said, "Do you speak English?" He went, a little, and then he was absolutely fluent. And
You just didn't want to talk, do you?
I talked to him about Asterix, which is like the
Yeah.
best. Oh,
Yeah.
talk about the
Going
colours.
strong.
The colours of Asterix are amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, I'm off.
Bye.
Get back in your cupboard. Yeah. Sorry, well, I must apologise that sometimes we do talk about other comics. But that's that fine.
Always get back to the original point. So 28 days left, or was it 23 that I noticed, Kevin?
I think we've got exactly 3 weeks. So we're up against it, but it's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, and because it's quite a target to reach, isn't it?
It is.
Look.
It is. The only good saying is the only thing I can say is that we'll see what happens. But we'll give our best shot. I think that the important thing as for at the moment is visibility really, and we just need to get as many people to see it as possible. So if people see it on social media, we'd be incredibly grateful if they could share it around.
Yeah, and obviously that's why we do this show, is to try and give books like this that deserve the spotlight. A spotlight. Because when we see stuff like this and it's not. And it's not hitting its target, it makes us very angry. So get out there and pledge, guys. Thanks, Sam. That's a good message. So yeah, well, hopefully you'll hit that target, and we'll do everything we can to help you get there.
We really appreciate it.
We've got quite a bit of time yet, but I'll be pledging definitely, because £6, you can't go wrong. I might even splash out on the black and white edition, actually, because.
We'll get you, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Well, that's only £12, isn't it?
That's right.
Oh.
I mean, obviously, you had to do that a bit more expensive because it'd be smaller print. And in fact, I think the black and white printing is almost more expensive than the colour. It's
Yeah. Surely you just turn the colour down.
Well, I suppose because it's a much shorter print run.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
But still oversized.
Oh yeah, still A4, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. I think I might take a plunge actually on the black and white.
You did appreciate it.
So what happens if more people want it than you're printing?
Well, I'm sure if more people want it than we're printing, then we can happily overprint. Nothing's set in stone. The more the merrier.
That's all right then.
I'll get the dog. I'll get the dog to help me with the packaging. It's ton of it. She's been very patiently sitting in the corner here. Normally, she creates a bit of a fuss.
Right.
But she knows how important it is, so she's kept stum tonight.
How well behaved! That is amazing. If that was my old, God rest her soul, my dog's gone now. But
Sure.
if that was my dog, I would not be able to do this. They'd be whining and putting their paw up and barking at the screen. God,
Yeah,
done.
Yeah, I should live with you.
Well, I actually lecture part-time at Staffordshire University, where they run a
Right.
kind of comic art course. And,
Oh yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, so obviously that's all gone online this term. So she sometimes does that, after being at the screen for about 5 or 6 hours, she can try and bomb it, or can I just have a low-level growl to show her displeasure or something. But yeah, she's been as good as gold tonight, thankfully.
Oh, fantastic! And I meant to ask you about the course. Actually, we have sort of run out of time now, but like you say, it's gone online, I guess. Will it be restarting again for the next term?
Yeah, well, I mean, say it's at Staff's uni, and I think I'm probably next due to do it back in January. I normally have to kind of travel up Stoke from it, to travel up to Stoke kind of for it, but it's a much shorter commute now. Just walk into the study and come up the garden. But yeah, it's the same for about 4 hours each way. But no, it's fine, and it's very strange doing it. But I mean, I mainly do tutorials there rather than kind of stand up and kind of give a big talk.
Right.
And I didn't notice kind of too much difference. That was all good. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Lecturer, comic book creator, and house DJ. Blooming heck.
Yeah, I mean, what a combination.
Yeah.
And dog whisperer.
That's a life, that is.
Dog whisperer and walker.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time.
Great meeting you both.
Stefan,
Pleasure.
thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No
Great job
problem.
on the color. Great job on the colouring, and love the t-shirt, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin, for coming on.
No, it's
And,
been a pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been really good to chat. It's been nice to see you guys. Thanks, Ollie, for co-hosting as
No,
always.
thank you, Shane. It's always lovely. And hope you enjoyed your cider, Kev.
Yeah, and great to meet you as well, Ollie.
Yeah, hopefully in the flesh next year.
Absolutely. I hope so. Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Sam, can you run the VT and we'll close it out?